how many of you guys do not know how to swim?
Just me?
Nice!
You're like me.
Wait, what?
Alright, we'll get to that later. So, it's fun, and I would not suggest anyone to actually surf without knowing how to swim. So, please be careful. In this talk, I'm not going to cover anything about surf safety. I'm not going to cover how to surf, because that's frankly a lesson on the beach, and I would love for you guys to come on the beach, and I'm more than happy to teach you that. Alright? Today, we're going to talk about surfing as in the evolution of surfing, not evolution, culture and the background of surfing in general, and how surfing came out to be the sport that we have seen today, and how it got the cult following that we have today. And we're going to talk about a little bit about the science of surfing, the science behind the surfing, like what waves are and how they are formed, etc., etc., etc. Alright? Sounds reasonable? And we can also get to boards. So, because the history of surfing actually coincides with the evolution of boards itself, the surfboards itself. So, it's fun to learn about surfing as a history, and then we see the evolution of boards. I do not have any of the old boards, as in the boards that people in 1800s or 1700s used, because frankly I don't own any of them. Having said that, let's start off. So, Polynesians were the ones who perfected the art of Hi-inalu, which means wave sliding. It's not surfing, it's kind of like sliding on the wave. And Polynesians includes like New Caledonia, Hawaii, Vanuatu, somewhere in the Pacific Islands, and frankly New Zealand as well is a Polynesian country. So, for them, it's a part of a cultural thing, and it's so ingrained in their culture that they even selected their chiefs based on how good they were at surfing, at wave sliding. So these chiefs are usually the best wave sliders around in Polynesia. And so you say that the royal family of Hawaii is like filled with good surfers all around. And that's been the case in 1700s. And moving on, in 1700s, that's been the case for many centuries until 1700s. Europeans come around, this guy, Captain Cook, comes to Hawaii, and as with everything in the Europeans, whenever they go to some place, I'm sorry I'm saying this, they fuck things up. And the same thing happened to Hawaii. Europeans came around and it did not go well for the Hawaiians, and it ended up really bad for Captain Cook because he was killed. In his third voyage to Hawaii, he was killed by some local Hawaiians. For some
He had it coming.
So, from 1700s, the art of surfing kind of went on a decline, and Europeans kind of frowned upon surfing. So people didn't do it as much, but the royal families still continued to do it. But so we had this void of nothing happening from 1700 to 1900, and that's when things started changing. So 1900s is when things started changing. So we have our dude. He's my man. So Duke Kahanamoku. Okay. So Duke Kahanamoku is from the royal family, and as I said, royal family in Hawaii is usually the family that is really good at surfing, and they have the access to the best breaks, and they are usually the best people who know how to surf. And Duke Kahanamoku learned how to surf at the very young age of 5 or 6, and he also learned how to swim. More than a surfer, he is a really good swimmer, and so good that in 1912 Stockholm Olympics, he won a gold medal for 100 meters freestyle. And he went back 4 years later in Antwerp and got a gold medal in freestyle and relay. But why is he important for surfing is that he is a person who turned the tide around. And he is the person who popularized surfing wherever he went. Like he went to New Zealand, he went to Australia, Europe, and California. California, yes, of course. That's where he made surfing a thing and surfing more visible for others. And he was quite an inspiration as well, because at one point he saved about 28. A ship was sinking, and of the 28 sailors, he saved 8 of them. So then there's a great history of surfers being great watermen as well. So and then we have the surfboards so far. So by this time there were like 3 different types of surfboards. Like one that was like 9 to 12 feet, and then we have this 18 to 21 feet surfboard for bigger waves, and then you have the 28 feet surfboards that are like gigantic waves. These are all made of the best trees that they can find, and the royal family again had access to the best trees and best surfboards. Moving on, in 1930s, what happened is that as Duke became popular, this young man called Tom Blake Balake. I'm the substitute teacher. All right. So Tom Blake was inspired by Duke, and he wanted to actually go to Hawaii to learn how to surf. And he's a Californian. And of course, on his second trip to Hawaii, he did eventually meet Duke and learn how to surf. But being a really new person to surfing brings a new perspective to the whole sport. And when there is a new perspective, you have innovations coming in. So Tom Blake is actually very phenomenal, and he is influential in the world of surfing because he brought in the first innovation in surfing called the hollow board. Until then, all the surfboards were really thick, made of pine wood or thick wood, which means, and they're like 28 feet. Can you carry this one? There's like 8 feet, and you cannot carry this. Imagine carrying a 28 feet surfboard, which is completely made of wood. So it was difficult to carry, and it was also difficult to surf because, like, can you move a fucking dinner table? It was bigger than a dinner table, right? Maneuvering a dinner table was difficult. In fact, Kelly Slater actually surfed on a dinner table. Kelly Slater is a 12-time world champion. So what he did was he made a hollow surfboard and then covered it up with an insulating layer of wood and patched it up. That way, what happened is like surfboards became so much lighter. It was amazing, and people could carry a surfboard. Look at him, just carrying a surfboard with his own hand. Until then, you had to get into water. You had to get like 3 people to carry a surfboard. But nonetheless, so that was one of the main innovations that happened in surfing that made like easy to actually make these surfboards, because 28 feet surfboards are difficult to make and carry too. And then in like 5 years down the line, he also had another innovation, like a tiny fin. He put a tiny fin on the back of the surfboard. This is the wooden fin. And this was a phenomenon. It was a great innovation because this helps surfers not just slide through waves, but actually control and maneuver. This was what bootstrapped the modern surfing. And then, and of course, by the way, by this time, 1940s and 1945s, we started building surfboards out of fiberglass. We thought, oh, fiberglass is actually waterproof. Why not we build surfboards out of fiberglass instead of making out of wood? And fiberglass is actually much, much lighter than wood. I guess this one's made of some fiberglass. Alright, so you see O'Neill, a Santa Cruz native, he found the company O'Neill's Wetsuits, and his innovation was the wetsuit. What this did was it brought surfing to the colder parts of the world. Because until then, surfing was much of a summer thing. Like, yeah, if you're in Australia, you could surf. If you're in Hawaii, you could surf. You guys probably have surfed in Hawaii, and it was much more nicer. So this brings surfing accessible to colder regions, which means like it also puts Santa Cruz, our local Santa Cruz, in the surfing map. it is much more important because of many reasons. And this is the first wetsuit, and this is made of neoprene, and it's like it shields you from cold. And surfing becomes Hollywood thing. In 1959, the movie GIDGET Goes to Hawaii. GIDGET is the lead actress in this movie. This showcases the Hawaiian culture and the surfing, how important surfing is in the Hawaiian culture, and this woman who wants to be independent. So Hollywood now knows about surfing, and then we have a lot of people wanting to go to Hawaii to surf. But the real thing came up at 1966, The Endless Summer and the Beach Boys. Endless Summer is a documentary of these two guys who went out to surf rigs across the world, and they documented how and what it is to surf from there. If you like surfing, I thoroughly recommend watching this movie. And then, of course, until then, we did not have a leash on these boards, just like this board. So in 1971, LEASH was invented. LEASH helped people to hold on to their boards. Until then, if you fell off the board, you have to swim all the way to the ocean, like the beach, carry back your board, and come back in. So that's another innovation that happened. In 1981, thrusters fin setup. If you see this one, or that one too. This fin setup is called the thruster fin setup. What this thruster fin setup gave is much more control onto the surf, onto your act, and then you can actually do airs, like all the crazy things that people do, like they come onto the surfboard and then they jump, and they do airs and they do 360s. That's all possible because of the thruster fins. And then this is how the surfboards looks today. And then let's see. So today's surfboards are mostly of 4 different categories. One is a longboard. Longboard, let's imagine this one. This one is a longboard, kind of a longboard. Longboards are about 9 feet and upwards of 9 feet. But what's the use of longboards is that it is much more easier for you to start off surfing on a longboard. It is very buoyant, and not just that, it will give you easier rideability. It will not turn, but it is much more easier to navigate and then ride. And then we have a fish board. We have a fish, that's the one. That's the fish surfboard. Why is it called a fish? Is that because of the fins. You see the fin setup here is kind of a fish-like. So what that gives you is that you can actually surf on a fish on a small waves, and it has much more volume to it. And it's kind of an intermediary board wherein once you know how to paddle, once you know how to stand up, this is what you want to try on. And this is actually a really good surfboard for small, tiny, mushy waves. And then we have a shortboard, of course. This guy is a shortboard. This is what all the pros usually use. These are usually about 6 feet to 6'10", and they do not have the fish-like ending, and they're either tri-fin or 5-fin setup based on the kind of waves that you want to ride. And these are usually for waves which are about 10 to 15 feet, or anywhere between 6 to. You can also ride 6 feet waves. But these are the boards that you use to do all the crazy maneuvers like airs or 360s or whatnot. And then we have the gun surfboard. Gun surfboard is kind of like this. It's not really a gun, but it's super thin, super long, and it's got this nice rocker. And it's usually more than about 9 feet, but this is about 7 feet or 6'5". But gun surfboards are really long surfboards with huge rocker, as in the huge curve. Why is that important is that you can get onto the gun surfboard and ride 30 feet waves. If you want to do 30 feet waves, which I don't suggest you guys do, get onto these boards. So those are the 4 different types of the surfboards that we have, and any of the surfboards that you see are kind of like hybrids of these and mishmash of these two. Do we want to talk more? We have 5 more. 1 minute? Oh. Okay, I was going to get into the science of surfing. Okay, so how are waves formed? Is it the tides?
Gravitational pull.
Yes. So it's definitely, it's not the tide that forms the wave. So what? What?
It's also like there's a ground thing, right? So like you have like ground and then it drops off so that you can actually get that wave.
Right. So waves are actually formed deeper in the ocean. It depends. Like there are two different types of things. So a swell is the energy that travels. So a swell, like there are two different types of swell, which is a ground swell and a wind swell. So ground swell is a thing that is formed deep inside the ocean because of cyclones or ocean storms. So what happens is that when there's a storm deep in the ocean and there are strong winds blowing into the ocean, that pick up the water and then causes this swell. And this swell travels thousands of miles and then slowly reaches the shore. And when it reaches the shore, it breaks as a wave. So that is a ground swell. And the wind swell is kind of a swell that actually is really because of the wind that is closer to the shore. So if you see windsurfing people or Lake Michigan, when you see waves in Lake Michigan, it's mostly because of wind, strong winds that are blowing through. They lift up the water and then create a wave. It is much high. Wind swell has lesser energy, and ground swells have higher energy. So, should we continue? Yeah? Okay. So swells are actually measured by offshore buoys. There are two dimensions to this swell. One is the swell height, which roughly translates to wave height, and one is the swell duration, which roughly translates to wave energy. So if you ever go surfing, I would highly recommend you guys to look at the surf report and see the swell height and the swell duration. You want to be able to surf, you want to look for a swell duration of more than 10 seconds, which means if it has more than 10 seconds of swell, as in swell duration is the distance between two consecutive swells. Think of it as a wavelength, the time. And as the swell travels across thousands of miles and reaches the shore, it breaks in as three different types of breaks. We have reef break, we have point break, and then we have beach break. So beach breaks is kind of like a sand. It's caused because of the sand. Like it reaches the sand, and then it doesn't have enough land to grasp, so it breaks onto the sand. So that's a beach break, and then you have a point break. Point break is much more extreme as this. So point break is caused by this land that juts out into the ocean, and then what happens is swell turns around and then creates this beautiful looking wave. So you can catch a wave here and then right all the way here. It's a super good looking wave. RINCON Point in SoCal and 41st Avenue or Steamer Lane in Santa Cruz are great examples of point breaks. And then we have a reef break. It's caused by a shallow reef deep into the ocean. This is much more deeper, and then this reef break usually creates about 30 feet waves, like Jaws in Hawaii. You don't want to surf this. Beach break is COWELLS Beach. So like this is complete sand, and then the wave slowly rolls in, and then it creates a tiny break. It's a consistent break that goes all along. And then so I suggest you guys, before you go surfing, check the tide. You want to go during low tide because people have fear of drowning. You will not drown during low tide. And if you go in the shallow waters, and then check the swell, you want to look for swell durations of greater than 10 seconds and swell height to be like wave height to be less than 4. Like that's good enough. And then check the water temperature. If the water temperature is 58 or 61, get a wetsuit and then go. I was going to show you how to read a surf report. Do you have a minute to see it?
Sure.
All right. So this is a simple. Oh, I don't have Wi-Fi, do I? Okay. So this is how a surf report looks of, let's say, COWELLS Beach, just the beach break that we have seen. So it says currently it's about 1 to 2 feet waves, all right? And then it says the tide is rising at 8.29 and the tide is about 5.2 feet. Not ideal, it doesn't break. And if you want to go surfing, what is a good time to go surfing is when the tide is about 2 feet to this time, it's so 4 o'clock in the morning is a good time. Or 3:55 in the afternoon is kind of a good time to go surfing. But also, like, there are 2 low tides and 2 high tides, and tides move one hour every day. There's an offset. So tomorrow it's going to be about 5 o'clock in the morning. So day after tomorrow it's 6 o'clock, and like Thursday 7 o'clock. So Thursday 7 a.m. is a good time to actually go surf, which I am going to. So that's it. I would love to talk about more, but I think we ran out of time. Oh, sorry. So if you come to me, if you come with me surfing, there's a different beach lesson wherein I teach you how to paddle, and how to surf, and how to catch waves, and how to stay on the board after you catch waves. That's a different story, which I cannot teach. But
Cool. Anybody have any questions?
but yeah.
Are these boards all yours?
Yeah, so usually surfers have a quiver full of boards. Yeah, and like different boards have different are rideable for different conditions. So and also different places have different breaks. So if I want to go, yeah. So if I want to go to like COWELLS beach, I would probably take this guy or the big one because it's a tiny break. And if I want to go like 41st or Steamer Lane, I would probably take these 2.
Have you done
Depends on
jazz? Have you done jazz?
No, I would not want to do it. I just told you, like, I don't know how to swim that well. Yeah.
Just hold on to the board floats.
But, so the problem with 30 feet waves is that once you go down, you are down for more than 45 seconds. So surfers are, like, people who surf these waves are trained to hold their breath for 4 minutes. So if you can't do that, I would suggest you go. But then also there's the other problem is that once you go down, you will hit the reef and you'll be knocked unconscious. You may break your back, you may break your head, and you'll be knocked unconscious. So unless you actually are a diver who knows how the spot works, or where are the caves and where the reef looks like, I would not suggest you.
So if you got a full body like armor suit with oxygen,
then you're gonna sink.
navigation devices.
So
Then you're not gonna surf.
Personal sunbreak.
So one of the things. So one of the things that happened during that's a recent development during competitions, like Eddie Aikau or Jaws, is that with the wetsuit you have this air deflator, which you can actually pull. If you are underwater, you can just pull it, and then it inflates, and you can come up. But there is another problem with that, is that once you come up and you're inflated, you are at the mercy of the second wave. It's like an air mattress on a 30 feet wave. You're gonna be knocked around. You're gonna be knocked around, and usually these breaks have rocks at the beach. It's not a sandy beach because they're reef breaks. So if you get carried, you're gonna hit the rocks on the beach, and that's not fun.
So it's like basically pure emergencies only kind of thing.
Yeah, it's for emergencies. Like you deflate just to come up, and then once the wave is crashing on you, there's another knob to actually deflate yourself. You deflate and then dive down until the jet ski actually comes around and picks you.
The jet ski stays in those waves.
So as I said, Hawaiians are great watermen. They care about surfing as a sport. So when the waves are breaking around 20 feet, there are usually about 6 to 7 jet skis there to actually help you and save you in case something happens.
Yeah, but how does a jet ski maneuver 30-foot waves?
It doesn't. You sunk after the wave has broken. So jet ski comes, picks you up, and then drags you out. Yeah, a jet ski can actually take in about 6 to 7 feet waves. Yeah, and then just navigate through it and push through it, punch through it. That's what they say. So yeah. Anything else?
Do you know if like skateboarding and longboarding are related to surfing?
Yes. If you are a longboarder, surfing would come really natural to you.
About the LEASH coming in 1971, is there a reason, like, so after all the inventions came in, like,
at a high level, a leash feels like it's like.
It's an essential thing. It feels like it's an essential thing. But it's actually leash was invented by O'Neill's son, Patrick O'Neill. I think he still lives in Santa Cruz. Until then, all they thought was like surfing was a sport wherein you catch waves, and then once you slide off, you just bring your board back in and then go back in. Leash actually helps people to actually stay afloat as well. Like it helped me when I was surfing because I didn't know how to swim when I started. And when I got wiped out, I held onto my leash and then grabbed onto my board. So it feels like really like this should have been invented like in 1900s or 1800s.
Because you one of the things you mentioned was that people it helps you with like not losing your board. I figured that well people would not want to lose their boards, right? So it feels like something that would come.
That is true, and I've also seen a lot of surfers who are against leash too.
Purists.
I think, there are of course purists who are against leash because it gives them a feeling that leash is kind of like a tie down, and you're not good at your sport. If you cannot hold on to your boards.
I thought it could also be dangerous because if you have a leash and it's a big wave, how do you dive under and make it pull back out by your board?
You can be pulled back out, but it's actually a good thing. But as you said, yes, it could be dangerous for longer, bigger waves. People still take leashes, but they're taking leashes that are like 10 feet long or 12 feet long leashes. So that way, like the board keeps floating and the board keeps getting knocked out, but you're tied to the board and you're not moving as much.
Cool. Thank you very much.
All right.